I'll kick this show off. Cool. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us here today. This is Taylor Shanklin with the team here at Kimbia. Really excited to be talking about an ebook that we released recently, which I authored, and my pal here on the line, Kelly, was my main editor-in-chief, and really want to thank her for her efforts. And we wanted to bring it to webinar format and talk about some of the things that I discuss in the book, Predictions in Nonprofit Technology, and give you some food for thought, some things to be thinking about, and also some tactics and some tips and a little bit of a toolbox that you can take away from today and start thinking about how to get your organization and your technology usage into focus over the next few years, so that, as we say, by 2020, you are seeing 2020. Couple of quick housekeeping items for those of you joining. We are recording this, and so we will send out the recording and the slides we will have posted up on our website. And also we do have the lines muted just to help us eliminate background noise. But if you have a question, Kelly is going to be on the chat, and she can kind of ping me and speak up and let me know if there's questions. I'll try to keep my eye on it as well throughout, but please feel free to type your questions in as you have them. I will open up the floor for Q&A at the end, but I also want this to be an interactive session and something that, quite frankly, doesn't bore you. So I hope that you will enjoy this today. All right. So today's about you. It's about helping you, because we know fundraising is a hard job, right? Asking people for money is not always the easiest thing to do. If you're on a small team, you might wear a lot of hats. The dollars that you spend on tools and infrastructure, whether that be software or any other tool that you do to get your job done, those are donor dollars, right? And so the way I like to think about those, why sometimes it's hard for us to think about adopting technology, is because those donor dollars are emotional dollars. Someone gave them to your organization because they believe in you and your mission, and they want to see you propel that mission forward. So I think that that can make decisions to adopt technology and think about new tools as technology evolves. It can be scary, it can be emotional. So I want to talk about that today and give you some tips and tricks for how that's actually getting easier and less scary. Communication across teams can also be challenging. It's very possible, maybe you can just kind of raise your hand if you feel this way. You might have a few different teams within your organization who are using different tools, maybe to do the same thing. Or maybe your tools that you use are doing different things, they're for different purposes, but the data is in so many places and it doesn't talk to each other. It doesn't, migrate from one system to the next. Or maybe it does, but it's very manual and cumbersome and difficult, which leaves you feeling like you can't trust it all the time. So I want to talk also today about some things that you can start to think about and chew on that'll make it easier to get your data in one place. So we're going to talk about the world we live in today. What is the world of our donors? I want to talk about technology shifts that I see happening and also coming, and those that I think do affect the nonprofit space in a major way. Throughout the presentation, I'm going to be sharing my own tips and tools. I'm going to share a lot of ideas on tools that I actually use in my job on a regular basis. And then we'll follow it up at the end. I'll give a quick discussion on the assessment, which is in the ebook, and again, open it up for Q&A. But before we get going, who am I? Who is this voice that you hear on the other line? I am Taylor Shanklin. My friends call me T-SHANK, so feel free to call me T-SHANK. We're all friends here. My motto is that I take it one deep breath and one glass of wine at a time. That's probably because I have two very, very loud and very social children. while I love how loud and social they are, sometimes it makes me just want to drink wine at night and a lot of coffee in the morning. I've been working with nonprofits for almost a decade now. I've been helping them implement online fundraising programs. I've been participating as a participant in peer-to-peer fundraising events. I've got a couple pictures up there of myself. I first started doing that back in 2009 when I didn't even own a bike, and I signed up with Team and Training to do a 100-mile bike ride, and then I got the itch, I got the bug, and I just kept doing more and more. And happen to do that in my work life as well. Things that I love are coffee, writing, podcasting, delving into videos. You see a picture there of my husband and I wearing turkey hats. And I also really love karaoke. Don't even get me started. However, I don't like math. I hate cat fur. I think cucumbers are gross. And I don't like my weakness for queso, or my hips don't like it. If you want to get in touch, please feel free to email me. I'm Taylor@Kimbia.com. If you want to follow me online, I do a personal blog and some personal writing at T-SHANK.co. Trying to get my slides to progress. There we go. So just a little bit about Kimbia for those of you who are not familiar with Kimbia. We've got a variety of online fundraising solutions for everyday giving, for peer-to-peer, for event registration, and for crowdfunding giving day events. This is not a sales pitch at all today, but if you do want to talk to us more after the fact, please feel free to reach out to me and email me. And again, I'll be here for questions at the end. We are living in the greatest era for fundraising, in my opinion. It is more accessible and easier for individuals to get passionate about a cause and to fundraise for your cause. It's a very, very powerful thing, the way technology has changed and is evolving and is affecting the fundraising landscape. I think we're also on the sort of beginning of the greatest era, the greatest automation revolution since the car assembly line came to be. And so I think that's really an amazing thing. It can also be a somewhat scary thing, right? So I want to tell you a story, and I'm going to tie it back to fundraising. This is something that I discuss in the book as a preface. I want to talk about my car buying habit, because in the Shanklin household, we love to buy used cars. They are a great value, and over the past several years, cars haven't really changed all that much in terms of the experience you get. Yes, maybe one car has a bigger engine, one car has turbo, one maybe the 2013 versus the 2005 has heated seats in the front and rear, and that's a cool thing. But I've always been a laggard when it comes to buying a new car, because I feel like the technology just hasn't changed enough to make me be an early adopter and to go out and take what I considered a risk of buying something new. Except that changed for me recently. I had a 12-year-old car that was visiting the shop all the time. And it was not just the expense, but it was the time expense that was just killing me. I couldn't take it anymore. And so my husband and I talked about it, and we were like, let's just go look at new cars and see what we can lease. Maybe we can try out this new car thing by getting a lease. We still were unsure about it, and we weren't sure that we were going to adopt this new car buying mentality. Okay, what does this have to do with fundraising? T-SHANK, get to the point, right? Well, it has a lot to do with fundraising. It has a lot to do just with shifts in technology. What we found in the 2016 versus the 2015 model was an immensely different user experience. Things like integrated, Apple Car, safety mechanisms that actually, detect when I'm going over into the next lane and actually course correct. So user experience and life-saving technology kind of made me wake up and say, hey, for once, the new car is actually quite a bit different than the used car. And so I do value that now, and I am going to, sign my life away on this new lease agreement. And when we think about ourselves as fundraisers and using technology in this world that we live in, I think we need to take a step back and kind of put ourselves in the shoes of our donors, put ourselves in our own shoes. I'm sure we all support causes that we like. The world that we live in today is one where we humans are absolutely madly in love with our devices. We just are. We're completely connected to them all of the time. And while we might not sit here on the floor hugging them like this woman in this lovely picture, we just love our devices. We can't get enough. We want them with us all the time. So that's your donor, right? Our attention spans are constantly pulled in a million different directions. There's, noise here and messages there, and so many social media sites to be using so many messages at us every single day. It can be astounding, and it can cause our attention spans to become, I think, weaker and weaker, quite frankly. We also have very, very high expectations these days. We expect everything we use to be like Disneyland and to work like magic. I love that commercial of the commercials of the family where the internet goes out for 30 minutes and they're just going bonkers. It's just maybe it's sad, but it's just true. That's kind of how we're evolving. That's how we are today. We have very high expectations. So that's one thing to, again, keep in the back of your mind when you're thinking about your donors and how you want them to engage with you. They have high expectations. And they want to engage with your causes. There's so much technology available to do that they want to do it in their mobile world, their virtual world, their online world, and they want to do it on their own time. So this is a shift that's been happening over the last several years in technology and in the fundraising landscape. And it could leave you feeling like this, yes. But it could also leave you feeling like this, like, yeah, the lady with the smile, oh, this is awesome. And really deep inside, she's terrified and completely overwhelmed. And I know a lot of organizations, again, if you have a small team, it can be overwhelming to think about there's so much technology, there's so much to do, there's so many different channels that my donors want to engage on now. What do I do? So I want to talk today over the course of this webinar on some tips and tricks and technology shifts to sort of help lift that feeling of overwhelmment and just give you some ideas to think about. So I want to do a first poll. I've got some polls. I want this to be an interactive session. And I want to find out, let me get my poll opened. I want to find out who of you has an Alexa. So I'll leave that just open for about 30 seconds. Go ahead and type in who of you has one of these Amazon Alexas. I want to kind of get into your mind and see where you guys are at. All right, 5 more seconds and then I'm going to close the poll down. Okay, so I'm going to just read out these results real quick. 11% of you said, oh yeah. 2% said it's in the mail on its way. 63% said, no, I don't want one. 19% said, no, what is it? and 6% said I'm not sure. So what I find interesting about that is the 63% that say I don't want it, which I completely understand. So for those of you who don't know, Alexa is a tool by Amazon, and really the way I think about it is it's one of the first like home robots. I have one in my household. I did not purchase it. My husband did, but I get the feelings of those who don't want it, because it can feel like it's kind of it's like a little creepy, right? But it can also be extremely helpful. One of those tools that is coming into our lives. Maybe it's a little bit scary. It's also, helpful in the way of getting things done and workflow. So, okay, thanks. That's interesting for me to know. Just thanks for sharing with that. Okay, so let's talk about the 3 major technology shifts that I think are already happening and that are going to continue to happen. These are the 3 shifts I'm going to get into in more detail, but I want to at a high level introduce these now. The first one is ease of use. This is the user experience. This is becoming easier for you as an organization to implement software. It's also the ease of use for your donors to engage with you on software. Connectivity is also a big shift that's happening, and I think is going to just astronomically advance in the next 3 years. It is becoming easier and easier to connect systems together. I'll get into the word zap later, but it's easier to zap systems and data together for more integrated workflows. And then meaning from data. We'll get into this. What I mean by this is data can be scary. And if you're like me and you don't like math very much, data can sometimes be overwhelming. But it's transforming into this software ecosystem to where there's a lot of tools available now to help us take data and raw numbers, make meaningful and look for meaningful patterns, and then take action out of that data and the meaning that we find. And we'll get into that. And with all of this happening, I think that the fear to adopt technology is going to be fading away. I think organizations will, no longer be laggards. I know many of you maybe have heard, I've heard this a lot. People say the phrase, oh, nonprofits are always 5 years behind in their technology. That's something that I truly believe is going to shift. And I think that the fear to move in that direction and to be early adopters of technology is going to shift, because it's going to become easier the way technology is going. So let's talk about that. I want to share with you some examples of how it's becoming easier. Examples from an implementation standpoint, and also from a user experience standpoint. And then I want to share with you some of my favorite tools that I use to get things done. So first off, I want to talk about websites and the world of website builders. It's so easy, the marketing department can do it. Now, I can say that because I work in marketing, but what's amazing to me now is that it is so easy and so inexpensive for anyone to go pick up a Weebly site or a Strikingly site or a Squarespace site and build a really professional and beautiful looking website. And so that, I think, is going to really propel the ability of nonprofit organizations to up their game with their website, to build a new website without it being so expensive. So for smaller organizations, they'll be able to have a website that looks really nice, that's also really easy to maintain. And what's also going to be interesting is technologies kind of like what we're doing here at Kimbia, where you have the ability to embed the transactional part into whatever website you want. So this is just an example of me playing around with my Coffee for Cats demo site. An example of building a site on, several different content management systems, being able to take one little snippet of code, so you don't have to be a coder, and then putting it in, plugging it in to that content management system. What I think is interesting about this is the ability for, marketing teams, communication teams, people who are not IT experts or coders, to be able to make a lot of headway and to get very easy to use and inexpensive tools to use. Going back to the idea that our attention spans are getting worse because so many things pull us in so many directions, we have to remember that I really think these days our attention spans are sometimes they're just like that of a grasshopper. It's hard to focus on things. And with that being said, it's hard for our donors to focus on things. So it's harder for them to get through the process of completing the donation or clicking on a link on Facebook, going to another website, and then completing the donation or completing the registration process or getting through a long registration process. And so because of this, I think not only user experience from the implementation standpoint for you guys who maybe want to build a website, but the user experience for the donor really is king. In the book, I talk about how I feel like a few years back, I was seeing a lot of email subject lines and webinar invitations talking about the topic of email is king. I think the new king is user experience. It's becoming so much easier to have a good user experience. It's becoming more widely available through some of those tools that I showed you to have a nice website, to have a mobile-friendly website right out of the box. Any of those website tools that I showed you, Weebly, Drupal, Squarespace, Strikingly, they all give you a mobile experience right out of the box. That's what our donors want. And so we have to be thinking about that and shifting our approach to work in their world. They want to engage on social networks. They want to engage with you, but they want it to be easy. I love this example here. I've got down on the bottom right corner of the screen. It's a do-it-yourself peer-to-peer campaign with the YMCA. And the registration form is those 4 fields. It's so easy to sign up. And so I think as we're thinking about, if you're thinking about what technology should you be using, how should you be adapting and shifting, user experience has got to be at the forefront of what you're doing. Okay, so let me share some of the tools that you can very easily use. This is part 1. If you're someone looking to do graphics and you don't have someone in-house to, who's a Photoshop expert, there's a tool out there now called Canva. Maybe some of you have used it before. I love it. I use it all the time. It's $12 a month, and you can create incredible social media posts, web email banners, anything really that you need. The tool gives you all sorts of cool looking layouts. It'll automatically give you the right size layout. So again, this is a very easy and inexpensive tool to help build a great brand presence for your organization. Just go to canva.com and check it out. It's really, really good. Marketing automation is becoming so much more accessible and easier to implement and to use and less expensive. I've always thought the term marketing automation came with so many dollar signs on it, but tools like MailChimp and MyEmma and Constant Contact are making it incredibly easy to actually do good marketing automation now. On a lean budget where you can segment, you can get your data into them very easily, and you can be sending the right messages to the right people very easily. I want to talk a little bit again about website builders, because I find them fascinating right now, and I've been doing a lot of personal research on them. I do some personal writing, and so a couple of months ago I started researching some tools. I thought I want to build myself a website, but my coding skills are pretty rusty at this point, let's be honest. So what's out there? And so I started doing some research, playing around with a lot of the website tools. I built myself a new website in 5 to 6 hours on a Sunday with no coding. And most of that time was getting my content together and figuring out, what blog posts I wanted to put on, that sort of thing. So it's really, really incredible how fast and easy it is to implement these tools these days. Okay, let's keep moving. The next thing I want to talk about is connectivity. So connectivity is really, really key. And I mean a few things by this. I want to talk about social engagement and why that matters for fundraising. I want to talk a little bit about zapping things together, and then I want to give some more insights and tips into things to use. Virtual personal connection is all the rage right now. As humans, we want connection. It's just in our nature. It's in our blood. But as we talked about earlier, we also are in love with our devices. We're in love with our online worlds. And we also are in love with hearing recommendations from our peer networks. And I wanted to show this slide that has all of these different logos from probably social sites you use, or just other online websites where you go for information, like Wikipedia or Yelp and peer reviews. And why I think this is so important is because what's interesting to me about the way that this is morphing online is it's moving, and it's been moving to the fundraising landscape as well. We see that with peer-to-peer fundraising. We see the power of people plus technology plus a mission really moving people forward and engaging on their social networks and taking things like this viral. The Ice Bucket Challenge, I think, is a great example of something that we saw in the last several years of just really showing the power of social networks and peer networks alongside technology and a mission to move a mission forward. So I think it's really an interesting example that was kind of like a very important historical milestone, I think, for looking at the changing fundraising landscape that changes as technology changes. And I think what's interesting about this is at the core of this network effect is something that we probably all know well. We probably all grew up with it. It's peer pressure. And I don't want to sound like a cynic, but peer pressure is a really interesting human connection point and a really, really powerful thing for fundraising. And I think that at its core, peer pressure is part of why peer fundraising and social engagement for fundraising is just so effective. Human connections continue to be the same as they've been, but they're also morphing. We still talk to our friends and family on the phone. We still meet our friends and family for coffee, but we're also engaging with them in new places, in virtual places, on our phones. And, I wonder if we're starting to even engage with people more on our phones than we are through a good old-fashioned phone call or, hey, let's meet up for coffee at lunch. Because it's easy now to be connected to people across the globe, right? There are friends that I am able to keep in touch with now, from back in college, and they live all over the world now. And it's amazing how we can still have a very human connection with them through our online networks. And that's why I think social media is going to continue to be important for nonprofits, and not just from an engagement standpoint, but from a fundraising standpoint. So I'm going to do another poll here. I'm curious. Let me open it up. I'm curious to hear who of you is currently doing any advertising on social media. So have you dabbled in it? Do you do it regularly? Would you like to do it, but you don't know how? Are you against it, or are you just not sure? All right, I'm seeing a lot of people are saying yes regularly, and a big percentage are saying I've done it a few times as well. All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so to answer the poll, 47% of you said yes, I advertise on social regularly. 31% say I've done it a few times. 16% say I would like to, but I'm not sure how. 4% say no, I don't want to, and 2% I'm not sure. So that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I find it really insightful to, I see a lot of, obviously in my Facebook feed, I see a lot of for-profit companies trying to target me with their message a lot, but I haven't been seeing as much nonprofit organizations. So I was curious to get sort of a poll out there and get you guys' sense on how much you are doing it. And I think this is important for those of you who are doing it regularly or who are at least doing it sometime. I recently was looking at a Pew Institute study on who uses social media. And what I found was interesting was looking, basically it kind of validated my thoughts, looking at charts and graphs, comparing age data, race data, gender data, income data, education data, and community data. Over the last several years, across all of these different types of populations, social media usage continues to go up and to the right. So what does that mean? Who uses social media? Everyone. Everyone uses social media these days, almost everyone. And that's why I think that while maybe social media hasn't picked up for everyone in terms of being able to tie that back to fundraising dollars, it's a very powerful engagement tool. And I think we'll see as technology morphs, it'll be easier to actually attribute fundraising dollars to social media engagement and impact from social media. So let's look at where to be focused on in social media. I also looked at some studies just trying to kind of, validate my thoughts about where people use it. And this was a little bit interesting to me. Facebook was no surprise, still the top most widely used social media tool out there. What I thought was interesting was over on this picture, the graph there on the left was that Snapchat was a little bit lower than I thought it would be, but Instagram was kind of right, moving up there. And WhatsApp is also right at the top of the list. That's something that I don't know if any of you guys, it's not as widely popular here in the States, but I have a lot of international friends and they're all over WhatsApp all the time. And Snapchat is growing. Here's my thoughts and tips and things for you to think about on this. Facebook is going to continue to stay steady and to grow. I think more people will continue to be on it. I think Facebook is a great audience for reaching your donors, people who are of an age where maybe they have more means and more income are on Facebook. I think Snapchat is something to start figuring out how to use if you haven't already. I've heard things like, yeah, but people on Snapchat aren't donating to me. But I think that that's a mindset shift that we need to think about where, okay, so maybe they're not donating to me today, but if there's this whole group of younger people who are on Snapchat, do they have time to give, right? Could they volunteer? Could they be advocates for my cause? And long term, could they be my donors? Maybe they don't have a lot of money to give right now, but they might have time to give. And long term, some of them could be your major donors. So thinking about forging those relationships with them now, I think is important. I admit Snapchat's a little bit scary to me, but I also think, and I'm not that great at using it, but the point is that I'm trying, because I think it's the direction in which people are going and people are moving, and just starting to use it kind of on a personal basis and figuring out how it works is going to be a good thing to do. In my personal opinion, I think it's good to keep a Twitter presence. Twitter has been one of the big major social media outlets that I know a lot of nonprofits use, a lot of companies use it, but I really feel like long term, Twitter is going to, and we already kind of see this, it's really a lot of B2B sales. People post good, I think, and insightful links to thought leadership there. But when I sit back and think to yourself, when is the last time you really socially engaged with one of your friends on Twitter? I know for me that just doesn't really happen. It's mostly used in my work life. So when you're thinking about where your donors are and where your donors of the future are, my tips are to just keep focusing on Facebook and start learning Snapchat if you aren't already. All right, so let's get a couple of elephants out of the room too. What about email? Email's not going to be dead in 2020, okay? It's not going anywhere. I still think email is an amazing tool for communication, and I think it will remain an amazing tool for communication. So don't feel like you have to suddenly start thinking only about social and not email. Please keep sending email, keep doing email, but really be thoughtful about your email. Direct mail is also not going to be dead in 2020. Technology is changing and shifting, but that type of, engagement with supporters is still very, very much alive, I'm sure, as many of you know and probably deal with, and it's not going to go anywhere in the next few years. Social media, I think, will start to be tied to fundraising dollars more than it is today. And what I mean by that is, I think today, it's quite possible that people do get prompted to give on social media. They go, they make their gift, but it's not directly correlated back to that social media engagement. I think as data gets easier to integrate, I think as it gets easier to, and more people start, adopting better tracking and things like that, I think that will change, that we will maybe start to see in our reporting attribution to that social media engagement. I also think the way that technology is changing with mobile is going to make it easier to give within social networks. So my points here for email are: keep emailing. Do what you can to make your emails more visual, more engaging. I think with our limited attention spans, writing very long emails is going to be a thing of the past. So think about ways where you can be more visual, tell stories, use video in email or link to videos. Direct mail, keep mailing people. But my advice here is to really look for efficiencies and to mail the right generation. Don't send mail and don't spend money on mail for younger generations who, quite frankly, just don't want to receive mail. But for those generations that are part of your donor base that do like to get mail, keep sending the mail because it works. So, I think my message here is about segmentation and data cleanup, and to keep doing direct mail where it works. And then focus on social. It sounds like many of you already are. It's becoming harder and harder, the way that Facebook changes their algorithms, to have non-paid posts from like a company page, that's not just a personal person posting something, to show up in feeds. And so social advertising can be very effective if done right. There's a lot of tools out there that make it easy to learn how to do Facebook ads and things like that. And I'll show some tips on that. But I do think continue focusing on that is going to be really important. And you might want to get started with just thinking about, okay, I've got this event coming up that I want to promote. Take, for example, Facebook advertising. You can get very, very targeted in the demographic of who you're promoting. So whether it's a local event, whether it's a certain age demographic you're trying to target, it's pretty easy to do that on Facebook. Okay. All right, this moves me into my next portion. I've got another poll. I would like to know who here has used either Zapier or If This Then That, also known as IFFT. All right. See a lot of question marks on this one. Okay, just a few more seconds. 2, 3, 1. 2, 3, 1. That was totally out of order. Okay, closing the poll down. Okay, so 0% said I use Zapier regularly. 4% I use IFFT regularly. 4% say I've dabbled in one of these. 19% I would like to learn more. And 74% said I have no idea, T-SHANK, what you are talking about. Okay, so I'll explain what this means and the reason why I'm bringing this up today. And why I talk about Zap. So Zapier and IFFT are what I'm going to refer to as connectivity engines. They are tools out there that basically integrate apps and improve workflow. And the reason why I think this matters to start talking about now and thinking about now is because I think this is going to vastly change the way that we do our jobs and the way that our data and from one system to another connects. I think what tools like Zapier and If This Then That and all of these, things happening now, with APIs and the ability to connect data from one system to another is going to make this whole term data migration, I think, be a thing of the past eventually. Right now, thinking about, well, gosh, I've got this online fundraising system that I use to run my online campaigns. And then I've got this CRM system that I use, which is my database of record. And then I've got this email marketing system that I use, and that's where I send my emails. But also I have things in Excel spreadsheets, and sometimes we send emails from Outlook. These are all things that I've heard a lot over the years and working with lots of different nonprofits of all different shapes and sizes. And I think what's really, really interesting about tools like Zapier is the connectivity that it's going to offer and the way that it's going to change how data flows on a regular basis. So for those of you, I know there's a lot of you who said, I have no idea what you're talking about. My advice here is go to Zapier.com, go Google IFFT, and just read up on what these things are. I don't think that right now they will necessarily change your life, but I would start educating yourself on what these are, and look for opportunities to use them in your own personal daily workflow of getting things done. So is there a way for you to connect Gmail with your project management system? Can you integrate Salesforce with MailChimp if you use MailChimp? Just start reading up on these and sort of, test them out in your own time, in your own space, and see if there's some way where you can start to automate things to make your job easier, to free up more time so that you can spend your time less on nitty-gritty tasks and more on thinking big picture and thinking about, what's the next fundraising campaign I'm going to do. Okay, so tools and tips part 2. How do you start learning about some of these things? These are just a few resources that I like to look at and that have all sorts of, free resources for you to learn. If you don't follow John Hayden, go to johnhayden.com, start following him. He gives great information about social media marketing, email marketing. He does a bunch of great Facebook Live videos every Wednesday. Really, really great source of information. Really love John, and he puts out great stuff. So if you aren't following him, start following him. This MP Tech for Good article is just one example of, Googling and searching for articles on how to get your nonprofit on Snapchat. So again, just use this time in the next, 6 months or so to start learning. Google is my best friend. It's a little bit sad, but it's true. And I encourage you to develop a relationship with Google if you don't have one already. Adspresso is an online site that has Facebook ad training. So if you're not doing that, or you want to learn more, maybe you are doing it, but you want to learn more about how to get better at it, there's so many different free coaching tools out there about how to do this stuff. Okay, I know we're coming up on time, so I'm at my last section. I want to talk about how data is going to become more meaningful and also less scary. So I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence and big data and how it's going to help you get the right message at the right time to the right people. And I'll also have some tips and tricks on tools you can use. They're very easy and inexpensive. So my final poll is this. Whoops. What do you feel when you hear the word big data? I'm going to open up the poll and you guys let me know. Ooh, I've got a lot of nerds out there today on this stuff. All right. All right, this time I'm going to count backwards correctly. 3, 2, 1. Okay, poll results are 25% said, I am a nerd and I love this stuff. 37% said, buzzword alert, but I get it. 18% said, I'm overwhelmed. Totally get that. 8% say it sounds expensive. And 12% say, I have no idea what you're talking about, T-SHANK. That's okay. We're going to get through it together. So, the robots are here. Hollywood has been priming us for quite a while about robots being here and the future and robot invasions. And they are here. We saw that with the Alexa. But I don't think they're scary like they are in the movies. And while I wouldn't mind Will Smith coming to rescue me, I don't think he's going to have to. That's just my personal opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. But what I do think is that it's more like this. Big data and robots really mean better analysis and better information, more meaningful analysis. We see this already, whether we notice it or not. This is a couple of screenshots of my family's Netflix profiles and preferences. And I think Netflix is an amazing example to understand what big data and artificial intelligence, when working together, can do, right? So you can see here in the middle screenshot, that is my profile. And what Netflix does is it looks at patterns and it looks at my behavior and it makes recommendations on what's trending now. You can see down there on the bottom right, that looks wildly different than my children's profile, where it's looking at their behavior and their preferences, and then it's making the right recommendations that are appropriate for them. So that's what the power of these buzzwords are. By definition, I'll just put it up here, artificial intelligence is the theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision-making, and translation. So if anybody's ever used Google Translate, the Google Translate app, that's an example of AI. For anyone who uses Siri on their iPhone, that's an example of AI. All of these things are already around us. What I think is interesting is artificial intelligence and big data working together. So big data is just the concept of taking extremely large sets of data that can be analyzed and revealing patterns, trends, associations, especially relating to human behavior and interactions. And this is very important to think about as fundraisers because we want to make sure we're targeting the right people with the right ask at the right time. And that's what artificial intelligence and big data is going to help us do. With this marriage, it's going to be easier. And as time goes on and technology advances, it's going to be less expensive to basically look at data in a more meaningful way without having to be a scientist or without having to break the bank. What it does is it turns this spreadsheet, raw numbers land, into personas and into segments of real people, real donors. And it turns it into real action items based on those patterns of behavior. You put people into segments and then you target them with the right messages that are appropriate for them. So the continued evolution of artificial intelligence and big data, I don't think is something to be scared of. I think it's something that's going to truly help us be better at fundraising and making sure that we're sending the right messages to the right people. Okay, so my last toolbox, part 3, how can you learn more about this? If you're using Salesforce for your CRM system, you've maybe heard about Salesforce Einstein, which is the new artificial intelligence tool that Salesforce has come out with. I've got a link there. You can go to salesforce.com and just search Einstein and you'll find it. So if you are using Salesforce and you haven't heard about this yet, I encourage you to just go read up about it. They've got this whole, sort of user training path that you can go through. I think they call it the Trailblazers, and you can learn more about it. There's also incredible dashboards out there these days that, again, like those website builders, are extremely inexpensive and very, very easy to use. They're cloud-based systems. They have, automated API integration with lots. So you can basically take data from lots of different systems and build dashboards. Sife and Clipfolio are both tools that I've been playing around with on my own. They're both incredibly affordable. Sife, I think, is like $20 a month. Clipfolio starts at about, I think, $25 a month. So what I hope that I get across today is that things that we've maybe in the past associated with big price tags or very difficult to do are changing. And that is what is so exciting about how technology is shifting, how we can do our lives more effectively and efficiently. And that's what I wanted to share today, and hope you guys are kind of jazzed up and have some things to think about as you move. We're at the start of a new year, and as you're thinking about what is my 2-year or 3-year or 5-year plan, start looking at these technologies and deciphering whether you think some of them would be helpful to you and to your organization. Okay, so for those of you who've downloaded the book, maybe you've seen the F.E.A.R assessment that I have at the back of the book. If you haven't downloaded it yet, I did load it up into the web room here, so you should see it like over on the right-hand side under the handout section. And I'm not going to go through the whole assessment, but the point of the assessment is to take a time to take a step back and just assess where you are. There's instructions at the end of the ebook with the assessment that'll tell you it'll give you some questions to ask yourself. It'll give you instructions on how to rate your answer to each question and eventually get a score. My advice here is to get everyone together. If just the marketing and communications team is doing it, but IT and development and other departments aren't involved, I don't think it'll work as well. So try to set aside some time where you can get everyone together. And, if it's like a 1-day off retreat, team retreat or something like that, try to sit down and do it. I think it'll be enlightening. A lot of the questions in the assessment talk about, what technology are you using? What systems are you using? Where do you have your data? And I think what you might find, if you get everyone together, you might find some overlap where you're saying, hey, I really could be more efficient in this way if we just use what you're already using, or vice versa. I also will recommend be honest, be open, be honest with this. If you are not honest about where you are in your assessment, then I don't think it's going to be as helpful. And then my final tip is to adopt some sort of collaboration and project management tool internally if you're not using one already. There's, again, so many amazing tools out there these days that are either free or extremely inexpensive. I've used Asana, I use Trello now, I've used Smartsheet, there's Basecamp. There's so many tools that make it very easy to get out of your inbox, collaborate with other people in other departments, and move things forward when you are having to collaborate. So that's just one of my final tips on, getting everyone together and then working together on a collaborative tool. Oh, okay. I need some water. Thank you. We did it. If you haven't downloaded the ebook, please do. You can download it, like I said, on the handout section in the web room. You can go to kimbia.com and find it. I think we have it in the little scroller on our homepage. If you've got questions or you want to get in touch with me, please email me. I'm Taylor@kimbia.com, and I'd love to hear from you and get your questions. Okay, so I have not paused and asked if there are any questions yet, so I'm going to do that now and see. Okay, how does this work? Okay, it looks like...
I can ask you the question, Taylor.
Yeah, great, yeah.
This is Kelly.
Awesome. Hey, Kelly.
Great, so we have, I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but let's try to squeeze at least one question in.
Yep.
So we have a question from Stephanie. Do you think there will come a time when we don't need to mail invitations for fundraisers, rather use email and social media?
I do. I don't think it's coming. That's a great question, Stephanie. I don't think it's coming anytime soon, but I do think that it also depends on who you're targeting. So you might want to start thinking more about who are we sending mail invitations to, and who are we targeting on social and email? Because you might find that there's opportunity for you to continue sending mail invitations, but maybe based on your donor demographics, to send those invitations to, like I said, I think older generations who are more likely to want to receive mail. That's just my opinion. I do think, again, as we see, everyone's on social media as well. Now, the one nice thing about sending mail invitations, if it's like to an event, is it is nostalgic to get something in the mail, and that does stand out. So I like the idea of sending things like invitations to an event in the mail and continuing to do that. And I don't really see that going away anytime soon. What I would do is I would combine your efforts. I would send the mail invitation and then I would promote it through email and social as well. And you can even like do something like send your mail invitation out, and then, a few days later, once you know it's hitting people's mailboxes, start putting things on social or an email like, hey, did you get our invitation in the mail? So that just helps to sort of connect the dots for people. But no, I don't think it's going away, especially if we're talking about things like event invitations and inviting someone to a physical event, and things like that. I do think when it comes to mail, we just need to be mindful again about the demographics. I'll share a personal story here. A few years ago, somehow, someone got the name of my son, who at the time was 3 years old. And I started getting a lot of direct mail for my 3-year-old, which quite frankly, as someone who works with nonprofits, I was like, please just stop wasting your money this way. Please, he's 3. And so I think that that's just an example of really just needing to do your due diligence and your data mining and your cleaning and sending it to the right audience. I hope that helps answer the question. Are there any other questions?
Do you think we have time for one more?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we have one from Lori. If we could do only one thing in our small shop, where should we start? It's kind of an open-ended question, but hopefully you can give her a quick answer.
It is a good question. Lori, I would start with doing the assessment and thinking about, from that assessment, maybe there's some things in there that you're already doing. I would look at, before kind of deciding what you should be focused on, think about like who do we want to target, right? What are the donors that who are the donors we're trying to talk to, and what are we trying to talk to them about? And then from that, I would think, okay, based on that information, where do we think we're going to get the most bang for our buck? Do we think they're going to be most engaged on email? Do we think we have a lot of millennial supporters, and so we should focus a lot more on social? I would look at who you're trying to target and really speak to, and what you're trying to speak to them about, and then sort of focus your efforts on there. Part of why I shared some of these tools like Insights on Canva for graphics and Weebly and the data dashboards is because they're all really, really easy to set up and use, and like I use them. And it's been really fast and easy to use, a lot of those. So I think my other point there is that a lot of the technologies available now that are very inexpensive make it very easy for a small team to do a lot more with their time. So Lori, I hope that helps give a little bit of insight. I want to thank everyone so much for joining today. I hope that this was insightful and gives you some food for thought. And I hope you stay tuned for the next webinar we do. We do free webinars quite often. You can always go check us out at kimbia.com and go to the resources section. And from there, you'll find our webinars and our tip sheets and videos. So thank you so much for your time, everyone. Have a great afternoon.